Hi, welcome to Selectmen's Roundtable. My name is John LeBeau, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, and with me today are three of my colleagues on the board, Selectman Moira Miller, Selectman Mo DiPaolo, Selectman Beth Cassavant. We also have a special guest with us today, our new town manager, Kevin Mizikar. And so we're back after a bit of a hiatus, I guess we'll call it. And we will try to do better and do these things more frequently as we previously did. But it was a busy spring for the board, and as I said, we're back. And actually, this is Beth's first taping of a Selectmen's Roundtable, so we want to welcome you.
Thank you.
And I don't know if you want to take a moment or two as an opportunity to say hello to the voters who elected you and the folks in Shrewsbury.
Thank you so much for that opportunity, and I'm extremely grateful to the voters of Shrewsbury for electing me. It was a tough race, as Mo knows. We had 5 people running for 2 seats, and it was certainly a hard-won race. I feel very fortunate to have the opportunity to serve on this board and to just be a part of a really great team. I think the entire community works so well together, and just sort of seeing it from a different perspective only makes me understand even more how much effort goes into every single day here to kind of produce what we have as this beautiful community. I'm also really excited because there's so much, I feel like so much negativity in the world, and I feel like being a part of this board and doing something positive for the community is a nice way to sort of balance some of the things you see in the press about politics. And I've always believed that being a participant on the local level really does impact the quality of life that you have on a day-to-day basis in a community. And so being a part of this board is very important to me. I'm also balancing out the women a little bit, being like the 6th woman ever to hold a seat on the Board of Selectmen. And many of you know that I have 2 daughters, one of which pretty much came out with me every time I was out on the campaign trail. And I think it's just a nice opportunity to set an example for both of them that, you know, women can pretty much do anything they put their minds to, and that politics isn't just open, you know, to people of you know, whatever your gender, it doesn't matter. So it's great to be here. Happy to be a part of the team.
Okay, welcome.
Thanks.
So, as most folks know, our longtime serving town manager, Dan Magato, retired in early July after just a little short of 20 years as town manager in Shrewsbury. He was preceded by Richard Carney, who was our manager for 40 years. And there was Mr. Wilcox before that, our first town manager, who served actually for 3 years. So the town does not replace managers frequently. At least that's been our history. And we went through a process over the course of the winter and early spring to select a new manager. We had a subcommittee composed of Moira and Mo, and Finance Committee, at the time, Finance Committee Chair Donna O'Connor. They brought it down, went through all the applicants and brought it down to a group of finalists, 3 finalists that the entire board interviewed, and then made the decision to appoint Kevin, who comes to us most previously from the town of Leicester. Kevin started July the 10th, I think, or the 11th, right around there. So you're an old hand now in town. But this summer has been, I would say, pretty quiet, and we thought this might be one of many opportunities you have to kind of introduce yourself. So why don't you tell us and the folks a little bit about your background and maybe about some of the things you'd like to do here with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be on the show and to be a part of the team, as Beth said. I've really had a great time so far getting up to speed with staff. All the employees have been very welcoming, and all the members of the community, the residents, business folks that have stopped by to see me, that really means a lot to me. So I certainly welcome anyone that just wants to stick their head in my office and introduce themselves to me. You know, that's great, and I appreciate the opportunity to meet everyone. That short list of managers that are long tenured is very humbling, and again, thank the board for putting their faith in me to see how I can perform in that role. And there's certainly many things that I want to do, but first and foremost is really keep that culture, that team culture that lies from this board and into the town hall going. I think that's the biggest challenge that faces me initially. What a great group of people They've been open in providing information and helped me get up to speed, and I can't thank them enough for that. So beyond that, we're going to look at everything that we can possibly look at to continue to keep Shrewsbury, in an excellent position to serve the residents. I have a purely public sector background. I've been in the public sector for 15 years. I've worked. My first municipality was the city of Morgantown, West Virginia, when I was in grad school. I served in the finance department there, actually as a tax collector for their business and occupation tax program. I served as an intern in the West Virginia Senate while I was wrapping up my bachelor's degree, and then went on for a short stint in Washington, D.C. in the Department of Energy. I found my way back to local government in New Jersey as an economic development director, and moved to Massachusetts to take the position as assistant town administrator for the town of Grafton in 2011, and have really enjoyed our time. Wife and 2 daughters at home. We live in Sturbridge, and I have to thank them for their support. To get to do what I love to do on a daily basis, and thank you guys again for having the faith in me.
Terrific. Any questions that come to any of the board's mind?
I'm just wondering, I'm trying to calculate, I think maybe it's 45 days you're into it, maybe a little more. We're coming up on 60, whatever it is.
Correct, yeah.
Right, so what strikes you as was there anything that was surprising to you or different, or, just initial impressions, I guess?
Yeah, so I come from towns that are much smaller than Shrewsbury. Shrewsbury is very unique, even in the county. It's it's the 4th largest population within the county, and has the form of government that I want to operate in. So there's it's humbling again, but even from the outside, knowing the difference between the communities I worked in, coming from Leicester with a $30 million budget and Grafton with a $45 million budget, you think that you understand the scope and magnitude and the different things that the great employees take on a day-to-day basis in Shrewsbury. But man, you get there and you go, whoa, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's just there's 30 more layers of the onion to peel every time you look at a program or a process. And not in a bad way, not that there's too many layers, but just a lot that the employees take on, and they do it very well.
I remember you mentioned to me, I think, just discovering the Donahue Rowing Center, and that it was a municipal operation came as a bit of a surprise to you.
Yeah, that was definitely Angela Snell, Parks and Rec director, took me down there to see that, and I was like, really? A rowing center? So, what a great facility, though, and that was definitely eye-opening. Had no idea.
And actually, Mr. Donahue, the longtime former selectman back in the 60s, and a great benefactor to the town. Moira, you took it. I made myself a note. The first thing I wrote was surprises. I was going to ask.
Great minds, John.
Yeah, so this is the first town, am I correct, with a representative town meeting?
That's correct, right.
So we've always thought, and I've been in communities that have open town meeting as well, that one of the fabulous advantages of a representative town meeting is the ability to communicate, because you have a finite group of people, an identified group of people with whom you can send a packet to. I know we're going to have a special town meeting in early September.
September 6th. Right.
And I know you're developing a memo for that. That can be very difficult in an open town meeting community to, not to get the word out that there's a meeting, but to really provide background in advance, because you have the whole electorate who conceivably could come. I would think, it's all different, and there's no right or no wrong, but I think, I'm curious and you haven't experienced it yet, so in some ways it's an unfair question, but the ability to make contact with the legislative body in advance of the meeting, I think could be a very helpful tool for you.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that part of the process. As you accurately described, you never knew who was going to show up to the town. Well, you kind of always knew, because you know the folks that engage and come to the meetings. But yeah, you never knew what issue or what matter that was on the agenda would either drive people to come to the meeting or not come to the meeting. And so it was, it was really uncertain, until you walked through that door. You didn't know if you're going to have 100 people there or 300 people there. So this is very nice. We are crafting a packet to try to get as much information as we can out to folks. And I do look forward to that first special town meeting on September 6th.
How big was when you worked there, Morgantown, West Virginia?
So Morgantown, West Virginia, the year-round residents is about 30,000 people. And then once the students come in, it's about 65,000 people. So it's the home of West Virginia University. It was a very interesting, dynamic city there in northern West Virginia.
Council manager government?
It's a council manager, pure council manager government, where the 7-member council serves as the legislative and the town manager is the sole executive of the community.
And so comparing that kind of model to what you've done in Massachusetts, I would hope that what you're going to say is that there's more citizen participation on the Massachusetts form?
Yeah, so if you look at those forms of government, whether, the pure council manager forms of government, you don't have committees. You don't have a finance committee. You don't have, Parks and Rec committee, things like that. That's all handled through the council or just on a day-to-day process. So the manager and his or her staff is charged with developing the budget, taking it to 7 people and passing it on behalf of the community of upwards of 65,000 people or larger. So it's similar to the city of Worcester, actually. It's a completely different process, and you get a lot more engagement in the open town meeting form of government, which is really nice.
Well, it's one of the things that I like about Shrewsbury is that we do have a town meeting, and I happen to like the representative because you do get people who generally are more committed. Some of these people have been on, some of us already, over 20 years. So there's a long-term commitment, and they get the history of it. Sometimes it can be tedious, but I like the process. I really think it's a good opportunity to vet an issue. The votes don't always go the way we would like to see them go, but I think the process really works. And I think it's much better to have the town meeting than to have 7, 9, 11 people making all those decisions. To me, it removes you so much away from the residents. To me, it doesn't make sense. So there's been some talk, a few people, we got to start looking at whether or not we want to be a city or whatever. And it's like, come on, Framingham went to 70,000 people, 65,000 people before they finally decided to be a city. But I think it works. I think it works. 3 nights for a town meeting for a $120 million budget is not unreasonable. And really, it's 3 nights, but it's only 3.5 hours, 4 hours at a time.
Right.
So I think it's pretty good. I like it.
I'm not sure we feel like
3 nights.
I'm not sure we feel like a city yet.
No.
When you go to Framingham, they have 2 zip codes, and
Right.
they just feel like a city to me. And I had lived in Framingham for a few years and was very surprised to find out it was a town. And I just feel like Shrewsbury still has that town feel to it.
Yeah, I think I don't see any great advantages to moving to a city form of government, and I think Framingham was having 20 nights of town meeting. That was pretty standard, so the model wasn't working there. But I do find it curious when folks do mention from time to time, maybe we should become a city. And I find that I just don't really understand that, because you're already starting to distance yourself from the decision-making process. And certainly there's efficiency in a city form of government. Like you mentioned, you just have that one legislative body making the decisions, one executive. But if you can continue to make it work with this very broad based structure with town meeting and all these committees, I find it I find it superior.
Yeah, well, I mean, when we talked about citizen engagement during the interview process, and in some ways, in many ways, this form of government drives more citizen engagement than half the municipalities in the country would dream about, having people come in and engage with them in the budget process and engage with them on Parks and Rec and open space and the strategic plan. So, we have that system set up, and it's ingrained in the community, and it's well founded. And I agree, it definitely works.
Yeah, I mean, and on a national basis, very unique. I mean, not even all the New England states still really have the true. I don't think Rhode
it is
Island and
just
Connecticut
Massachusetts,
do
I
it
thought.
exactly.
Yeah.
Maine has town meeting,
Yeah.
and I think New Hampshire and Vermont do.
Okay.
But you try to explain it to people from other parts of the country
Maybe
sometimes.
it's just a New England thing.
Yeah, they say, what? Really?
Yeah.
What? So, Kevin, as 45 days in, you're starting to get some feel, I mean, or more than starting to. Where do you think we may need to, what areas do you think we might need to look at and address that? I mean, and you're looking with new eyes, and there's
Yeah.
nothing like having new eyes come in.
Yeah, so I mean, we've been having good discussions. I've been having good discussions with the department head and with Kristen Lass, the assistant town manager, and that includes this school department. I met with Joe Sawyer this afternoon, one of many times that we've met. So, I'm seeing that maybe some processes and functions that cut across all departments, like human resources support and public information and purchasing and procurement, that really don't have a home, don't have a leader, don't have a department head that's assigned to do that function, is maybe where some of the weaknesses are. I think it is a weakness because it is taking those department heads whose mission it is to provide a service to the community, and it's taken away from that mission-based outlook and time when they're in the office, and they're forced to look at purely administrative tasks. And I would love to see them refocus their time on planning and being more proactive and working on what needs to happen, weeks and months ahead of time, and less a little bit reactive. But everything that falls within one of those boxes that is has a leader and has a department head, it's very well managed, and we're very efficient. And so the biggest challenge is no matter if we have weaknesses in those areas or not, it's how do we better support those departments without, again, messing up the culture and how things operate within the community. So I'd really love to have better communications with the town, more frequent communications. And there's a lot of ways, obviously, with technology and social media, things like that we can engage. But when we do that and we make a decision collectively as a group, I want to make sure that we do it well and it's consistent. I just don't want to get a Facebook account because Facebook exists or a Snapchat account because Snapchat exists. I want to make sure that we do things well and it's professional and it can be relied upon.
Okay. I think we have a lot of changes in the office of the town manager and the office of the Board of Selectmen. I think we should mention that briefly. Our longtime administrative assistant to the manager, Paula Brady, actually gave us notice, I think even more than a year in advance, that she was planning to retire this February, March of 2017. That was before Dan had voiced his intention and his actual date to retire. I think folks knew that day was coming. So Paula left us in February. Paula was more the administrative assistant, I think, technically to the manager. Christine Matero was administrative assistant to the board, staffed the board's meetings, worked on the agenda, the minutes, the licensing. She took another opportunity and joined the school department. Kristen Lass has been the assistant town manager for a couple of years now, after formerly being our town planner. Valerie Clemmy came on. She's only 2 to 3 months on the job now to take Christine's position, and taking a slightly modified version of what Paula did. David Snowden, a Shrewsbury, grew up in Shrewsbury, still lives in Shrewsbury, took on that new position. He's in his, I think today's his 7th day on the job. So, it's been a bit of a change. So, folks, you might see some new faces there, but we're very pleased with what everyone's doing. And these things
I'd
happen.
just like to add, Valerie has done an unbelievable job, continues to, but she did an unbelievable job. She was only there for, what, a couple of weeks maybe before Christine had to move?
Right.
And so she was helping cover both positions. Of course, it was Kevin, Kristen, and Valerie. And, man, I'll tell you, she's just done a great job. She's always cheerful. She stayed in there, and she's really a go-getter. So it really worked out well, and she really deserves some congratulations.
And
because
Christian
she's
too.
done
Kudos
great.
to them all,
Yes.
because it was a period of time when, let's just say, it was stressful. Manager leaving, new manager coming, and they're, like you said, they're new. They're getting thrown into everything. And Kristen really, I think, was sort of the glue in that, holding it together. And they all do. I mean, they do what we do. What people do in Shrewsbury. They step up, and and it was nice to see, especially when you're really new and not part of that culture. So it's great. And so I'd like to go in now and see, like, can you take a breath now? I think kind of, things are, settling a bit, so it's good.
Yeah, definitely a baptism of fire.
Oh, huge.
But as everyone has said, handled very, very skillfully and appropriately, and with a very, very steep learning curve. So, Kevin, what do you like to do for fun?
Well, I follow my kids around the state while they play soccer on the weekends. That's really all. So the girls are 8 and 10 right now, and they both love to play soccer. And they do so competitively across the state, and they both dance. So busy. I don't know. My wife is much busier than I am. So I personally love to run, and get that break away and be healthy that way. So that's kind of how I de-stress and take some time to myself. But other than that, I'm just I'm a NASCAR fan. So
Oh boy, how did
we didn't know that.
we didn't know that? That wasn't an interview question. We didn't ask that.
Dan is as well.
that's what I heard.
Yeah, I mean, so honestly, I don't think any of us
No, I
knew
didn't know
that.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember it if you mentioned it. No,
Actually spent some time in college working on a crew with a professional dirt race team. Got to go over the East Coast with them to races. Professional driver, many cars, a lot of fun. So I should have stuck with that maybe.
So are you going to be going out to take Daytona and camping out in the infield like Dan did?
No, I didn't know that he did that. That's interesting. No, I haven't been there, but I've been to many races, many places. But my driver's retiring this year, so we'll see if the interest.
Oh, I see.
stays
Your
up.
particular who you follow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, another thing that has changed in hiring a new town manager, the board had to consider the issue of the residency requirement. So our charter dates back to 1953, and at that time we weren't the first, but we were among the first towns to actually go to hiring professional town manager. And we modeled in the great tradition of good government, see what somebody else is doing that works. And I had actually, someone in my business told me, he said, John, you know what R&D means? And I thought he was say research and development. Rip off and duplicate. So we, back in the 50s, we essentially ripped off and duplicated other towns' charters that and when you think of the change from just having the Board of Selectmen as the executive branch, who obviously had to live in town because they're elected officials, to hire someone, I think rightfully so, towns wanted to keep a close watch and make sure that the manager was there whenever necessary. So some of the early towns like Shrewsbury established a residency requirement. But in 2017, the world is a very much a different place. We frequently have 2 career households. And the board considered it, went to town meeting to ask for approval to seek a legislative change to our charter to do that. And actually, we're taping this on August 22nd, and we will leave shortly to go to the Selectmen's meeting. That's on our agenda tonight. And we're not going to speak specifically, but it would have very much changed the dynamic of the application, who we might have got for applicants. In fact, we
know it did.
Yeah,
We
that's
know it
right.
did,
We
that's
were
right.
we were in the application period
right.
when the town meeting occurred, and when the town meeting agreed to do that, the next day and we were almost at the end of the window.
Right, we
We had a lot of
received a bunch,
folks
yeah.
put their applications in. I have no doubt that we've made the right decision in hiring you, but also in the right decision in making this change, or having town meeting and the legislature allow the board to make the change if it seeks to do so. So, I mean, we're not, I think we respect the past and we respect our tradition, but we're not married to it. And if we see we need to make a significant change, we don't go into the charter that frequently, fortunately, because it's well
Created a
done.
new tradition.
Well, it speaks to what we were just talking about, how we're a big town, we're town city and changes and whatever, and so you look at things, and some things make sense to stay the same, other things you revise, and it makes perfect sense to change them based on where the community is now. So, and I think, well, obviously the majority of town meeting and the board agreed. So.
We talked about it for a long time. I know
Yeah.
even
It was a good
before the
debate.
town meeting, I was campaigning, and that was a question I got quite frequently, and I really spent a long time deciding how I felt about it. Because you see pros and cons,
Yep,
you know,
absolutely.
to both scenarios. And it's hard to change, too. I think we're a community deeply rooted in tradition, and change is never easy for people. But
And how many communities? And then the number of communities that actually have a residency requirement now it's very small.
Right, because I guess what we could call the second
As the time
generation
went on,
charters.
yes, it was less. Yeah.
I mean, did Grafton or Leicester have any residency requirements for anyone?
No, see there, yeah.
And yeah, throughout we did, I can't remember the stats, but it was a very
was
small
low,
number in the
whatever it
state.
was,
We've got about a minute left. I don't know if anyone has any final thoughts, questions, comments.
I would just let people know that Lakeway Commons slowly is starting to open. Starbucks opened, Burton opened yesterday, the day before this taping.
Burton's Grill. is the
Burton's
restaurant.
Grill. And told by the development company that over the next month there's going to be 5 or 6 businesses opening. Tavern in the Square is going to open in September, so it's coming along. It's a nice place. I think it's going to work out well.
Yep,
it's exciting.
looking good.
Okay, so with that, thank you for joining
Appreciate
us. You didn't have much choice. It was a command performance. I do realize I neglected to mention that Selectman Jim Kane couldn't join us this evening, and he would probably let me know that if I had completely forgotten to mention him. But as I said, we will endeavor to do these tapings now back to our normal schedule. We'll shoot for once a month. And we thank you for watching Selectmen's Roundtable, and we'll see you the next time. Thank you. All righty then.